In the middle of the garden that God placed Adam and Eve into were two trees. They stood there side by side, as if to offer a continual choice of two options. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil offered death, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat, for in the day that you eat of it you shall surely die. Genesis 2:17. Not as much is said about the other tree, except that we know its name, the tree of life. When Adam and Eve were put out of the garden after they sinned, God placed an angel to guard against their return. So he drove out the man, and he placed cherubim at the east of the Garden of Eden, and a flaming sword which turned every way, to guard the way to the tree of life. Genesis 3:24. Why? Because, lest he put out his hand, and take also of the tree of life, and eat, and live forever. Genesis 3:22. Does that mean that Adam and Eve would have lived forever physically as long as they had access to the tree of life? Does that mean that they died physically because their access to the tree was restricted? Notice in Genesis 1:14, God said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and seasons, and for days and years." From the beginning, there was already a cycle of existence, and that cycle included seasons. Seasons are a natural cycle of life, death, and renewal. When Adam is shown the trees of the garden, he is told that all of the seeding fruit trees are, quote, good for food. Adam's body needed nourishment. So consider these questions. If the tree of life could sustain Adam so that he never died physically, then why did he need the other trees? Why did they not appear as a substitute only after the fall? What would have happened if Adam had not eaten from the fruit trees of the garden? What was the purpose of food if not to sustain life? It is estimated that over 110 billion people have lived since the beginning of humanity, and that takes into consideration high infant mortality rates throughout much of history. It is thought that the Earth can sustain about 10 billion people, even with modern technology and food generation. If there was no physical death before sin, what if man had never sinned? What was the plan for a world that could sustain a creation that never died? Remember that Adam and Eve were told to be fruitful and multiply before the fall. Genesis 1:28. Physical death is not a curse. It is a natural part of the season of life. The death with a sting is the death that comes because of sin. 1 Corinthians 15. Adam and Eve were separated from God when they sinned, and so they were separated from the tree of life. The tree will show up again in Revelation 22 to provide healing for the nations in Christ's church, where spiritual resurrection and life is found.